We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Thursday and kind of back on schedule now after a lot of things going on for me and for my guest. My guest today is Old Soul. She's a regular here, and I know people get excited when she's in because she's got a lot of great insights and a great perspective. And Old Soul's at home for once,
Yeah,
relaxing for a minute. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for slowing it down a little bit.
thank you. I didn't get to relax today because our seniors, we try to schedule them where they all have like their doctor's appointments together. And so they had their doctor's appointment today. So I was watching our toddlers, the ones who are not in school yet. And then at the same time, I still had to deliver meals. And so I was like dragging them along with me to like drop off the meals and stuff. And then of course all the seniors thought they were cute. They wanted to talk to everybody, play with everybody. It was like it took longer than what it should have, but they were kind
Of
of like
course.
I appreciate the seniors that watch them during the day because you know
How many
they
toddlers did you have? How many toddlers did you have with you?
seven, seven,
Seven.
seven. Yes. Normally we have five, but we have seven today because you know somebody boyfriend needed to watch her kid. This is crazy, but I'm gonna tell you the story. So I have a friend, right? And he was incarcerated. He got out, he's doing good, he works and everything he's supposed to do, he does it, right? Part of
Mhm.
his part of his parole was you can't socialize with any other felons, right? So he
Oh,
recently had a birthday and he invited his mother, his auntie, his cousins and stuff. Well, his mother used to be a felon.
oh,
Well,
wow.
I can't say used to be, but she did time in prison before, right? So his parole officer, she got to stick up her butt, and she actually arrested him for violating his parole. And
Oh,
so,
Jesus.
so the he was supposed to watch the kids today because it was his off day, and he couldn't. So we took his two kids and drugged them along with us. But the good thing was, he was able to go to court, and the judge was just like annoyed. He's just like, wait a minute. Like, I see his paycheck stubs. He's not working full time, he's working overtime. He like is having like because it was his birthday, plus he had just got his own place. And he was like, and he's sitting in jail because he invited his mother over for his birthday party slash homecoming. And you could tell that the attorney was just, because we were like keeping track of it on Zoom court or whatever. And they were just kind of sitting there like, we don't know why she did this. But anyway, the judge kind of like went after the parole officer, like hardcore, like gave her a verbal tongue lashing
As
and
she
allowed
should.
him to leave. Yeah, the only thing he said was you have to update your contact list of like felons that you have no choice but to interact with. So he had to add like his mother and a couple other people from his family on that. And he did a good thing and switched his parole officer. So yeah, so that's how it worked. But we ended up instead of five, we have seven. So you know,
Well,
that's it.
I've said before, my experience with toddlers, and I've had a couple, and then I had my granddaughter.
Yeah.
And I likened having a toddler around the house is having a miniature drunk guy 24 hours a day around. They're bumping into stuff, they're eating stuff, they're pooping on stuff, they're saying crazy shit. And it's just like having a drunk guy around all the time. So to be walking around with seven little drunk guys, that's crazy.
Yeah. It was chaotic, but in a good kind of way. But I mean, the seniors, they really liked it. Sometimes if we have like, one of our toddlers, he is just like a handful. So sometimes one of us will just like take him from the other toddlers and the seniors and like, take him with us to deliver food, whatever it is we have to do. We'll just take him with us. But other than that, they're kind of okay. But they are they smarter than what they should be, in my
Oh
opinion.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, I've got my granddaughter. We just had a 5-year birthday party, and she's way smarter than I mean. She gets sarcasm. She gets
Yeah.
giving people shit because she gives me shit all the time. But my son and daughter-in-law having a baby at the end of May, so we're gonna have another toddler coming up. That will be interesting. This time it will be a boy, and that's a whole different thing. Might be better than girls sometimes because they're just goofy. They're not emotional as well.
I'm not choosing
But
a side on that.
what's that?
I'm not choosing a side on that.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. You know, before you came on, you sent me a videotape, a video from Instagram or something, and it was an interesting quandary. Maybe you can explain what the videotape is. We can't show it here, but it's an intriguing situation. It's not like
Yeah,
a situation you've seen before. So go ahead, tell us what the video was. And you said you weren't sure how to read that.
I really wasn't. So I still have a group with like some of the girls who came to stay here with me. So
Hmm.
we have like a group where we like talk about stuff when they're like, having a bad day, they have questions, that type of stuff. And then like
Yeah.
usually we'll have little like virtual meetups. And so that's what we were doing. And one of the girls, she put that video in the chat because in high school, there are MAGA supporters there who like to taunt other kids and, stuff like that. So in the video, there's a teacher and she is like going off. And the reason that she is going off is because if you look at the front desk, there's like a kid sitting there with his head down and he's crying. But right before they started filming it, he was saying that he didn't want to live anymore. He wanted to kill himself because he was being bullied. And so the teacher was like screaming at these children, like, you need to apologize. There's no bullying in my classroom. You don't understand what it feels like to be bullied. And she gave him back his red hat. And when she did that,
Stop right there. I just want to set this up. So
mhm,
there's a kid being bullied by kids in their class,
right, in the
the,
school.
the, in the school,
Yeah,
and the kid has got his head down and he's upset and maybe even suicidal.
yeah,
The teacher there is a black woman
yes,
and she's irate. Now, this
yeah,
sounds like a really sad story, sounds like a typical story, but
yeah,
finish the story.
yeah. So she ended up because he threw his hat. And so she picked up the hat and she gave him back his red MAGA hat that he was wearing. And as soon as she did that, there was a girl in the back of the classroom. And she's like, no, he shouldn't have wore that hat. And so the teacher was like, you need to apologize or get the F out of my classroom. Like she is going off. And the girl in the back of the class is like, well, I'm getting the F out of this classroom. And she got up and she left the classroom. And so the teacher was like, really, like when you first see it, you see her like going over the top, like cussing, you don't bully anybody. He's talking about killing himself. Like she is really irate. But what they don't tell you about the video is this kid, he's putting on his MAGA hat. Like nobody was bothering him before, but he just started showing up to school with his MAGA hat on. And he starts telling, Hispanic kids, you're getting deported. I'm going to call ICE on you and your family and all this other kind. He's picking on brown and black kids, like hardcore picking on these kids, right? And so the rest of the children in the school, they're like, F this. And so they start standing with the other kids that he's bullying, but in return, they start bullying him. And they are bullying him to the point to where he is talking about taking his own life in the middle of the classroom. And so that's what made the teacher snap. And so what the girls were asking me was, like, what do we do in that situation? Do we just sit back and let MAGA kids bully us? Do we bully them back? Like the school isn't doing anything about it. Their parents aren't doing anything about it. Like, what are we supposed to do when you have these kids from these crazy MAGA parents in our schools saying and doing this stuff, And then you think about like not that long ago, an 11-year-old Hispanic girl who was being bullied and told that her family was getting deported, and she ended up ending her own life. And one of the girls in the chat, and I just felt so bad when she said this, she said, if you have that type of situation, like, who are you going to feel more sad about if they take their life, him or her? And you don't want that to be happening with any child. But at the
Right.
same time, the situation they're put in, when you have a kid like that at school who's dishing it but can't take it. And then at first I thought the teacher, like, oh, she overreacting, girlfriend. That's a lie. But then when I thought about it, I'm like, well, maybe she knows a teacher who has been in a school shooting. Maybe she's been in one herself. She understands that a child like him in that situation is dangerous, because when you have children like that, they're not trying to just take themselves out. They try to take as many of y'all out with them when they do stuff like that. So I understand why she acted that way. But the other kids, they're in a situation like, okay, so now he just gets to bully us and we don't have to say anything. I don't know. I don't know. That's a hard situation for me to think, but go
And
ahead.
that is a weird situation. You've got a guy who's MAGA, who's a high school kid who doesn't know fuck about politics anyway, so he's being influenced by his parents, which
Mhm.
should be held responsible to a certain extent for this whole situation, because this kind of stuff shouldn't even be dealt with in high school. Kids who can't vote should not be playing this political thing, especially when it's so divisive. So this
Yeah.
guy is bullying other kids, people, kids of color, and so they gang up and say, "Fuck you, we're going to push you back." Now
Hmm.
he says, "I'm going to commit suicide. I'm so upset. I'm so sad."
When you look
I
at the
I
video,
don't.
you see him with like his head just in the desk. Like he couldn't even hold his head up. Like, as a parent, I see a child like that and it just tugs at my heartstrings.
Yeah, yeah. No, I understand that. I'm not as sympathetic for everybody, especially in these situations, because it's one thing if he said he was Republican and they were Democrats and that's what they were fighting about. I could
Hmm.
see this is kind of silly. But what he's supporting, and he knows he's supporting, is something that is racist, misogynist, anti Semitic, um, anti democracy. He's doing it specifically to fuel some shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if this kid is a malignant narcissist or not. Maybe, maybe not. It doesn't matter. But if you've ever been around a malignant narcissist, and I know you have, they're really good when they're winning and they're in control and they can do anything. But when you put them in a corner and there's no way out,
Yeah.
they either just flail around, they run, or they start crying and claim victim. And that's what it seems like this kid did. I can't win this. I fucked up. Now I'm just going to say I'm going to kill myself. Now, I'm not suggesting that he doesn't mean it because I don't know that he doesn't mean it, but
Right.
that's the reaction. He fucked around and found out. And, the idea that if this guy can bully or hit other people and they can't push back, that's not right either. I mean, that's the state this this Republican Party has put us in. We're
Yeah.
at odds with everybody. If I walk in someplace and some Trumplefuck comes up and they see me and they know me and the way they talk, I'll guarantee you they will be um, aggressive toward me. Now, the only
Yeah.
thing I can do is protect myself and fight back. That's the unfortunate situation about this. I don't want to see a kid being so upset that they want to commit suicide, whether they're MAGA or not. I don't want to see that.
Right.
But what people have to understand, parents who have control over those kids, who are responsible for those kids, have to understand how volatile this is and there
Yeah.
are consequences. I mean, if you've got just a regular tough kid going around giving adults shit, that kid could get shot by some crazy fucker. That's
That's
the
true.
results of behaving like that. So the problem here isn't the kid as much, it is the kid, but it's
Hmm.
parents that aren't doing their fucking job. And the parents should be held responsible. And I understand or fear that you get this kid upset enough and depressed enough. That's the other aspect.
Hmm.
Does he go and get one of his 150 dad's guns and come back and shoot something? This is
Yeah.
all shit we shouldn't have to worry about in high school. But because of these people, we do.
Hmm.
So the blame is bigger than this kid. This kid is just caught up in the bullshit that his parents and that the political parties created. Um, and I don't know that it's avoidable. People are going
Yeah.
to take sides. I mean, I remember when I was a little kid, 6, 7 years old, I lived on a block. And on this
Hmm.
block, we had half of us kids that went to Longfellow Elementary School, a public school. And we had half the kids going to St. Albert's Catholic School. So we had
Hmm.
Catholics and Lutherans on it. And we play together and have fun. But the moment we got in an argument, you
Hmm.
fucking Catholics, you fucking Lutherans, and we didn't even know what that was. And see,
Yeah.
that's the thing. The parents put these kids in the situation, and that's who's responsible at this point.
Yeah. I was telling Kelsey, I was like, well, the part of me thinking if I was like a student in this school having to deal with this jerk, and then his inability to handle the consequences of what he's been going around doing to the other children is, we don't know what his home life is like. We don't know what he's going through. So apparently he's in a MAGA household. And I can't imagine that this is a happy household or by
No.
any stretch of the imagination. And he is just taking that behavior from his home life and he's just bringing it into the school. So I kind of look at it as like blaming his parents. And she just said, if his parents are not willing to teach him that lesson, we're going to teach him. Like, for me, it's just like there's no right or wrong answer to that. And I really do like having a discussion with these girls and like talking through things, what they're going through, stuff that I would have never thought about. And I'm happy that she posted that video in the chat because it's making me, think a different way about things. But at the same time, it kind of feels like there's just no answer to this solution. And I did tell you when I sent you the video, like at first I wasn't like a fan of Kelsey not being able to wear her like political, like her Kamala Harris shirt to school and stuff like that. But once I saw that video, I completely understand why. I'm not in the South, but the schools here on like the West Coast, you can't wear political gear to school, no kind of merch, no nothing. You can wear what you want at her school because they don't have a uniform. But if there's anything like political on there, like that Trump hat, that would never even be allowed in her school. But it's not just Trump, it's like political at all, take it off. Call your parents, tell them to come bring you something else. Like, no, you're not wearing that to school. So now I get it. But I never looked at it as her having a Kamala Harris shirt would be like dangerous. But, unfortunately it is. And then what do you do with these MAGA kids who are having this stuff pumped into them at church, at home, or, their peer group, their family, whatever. And then they come to school and they're around kids who don't think or feel like that. And then at the same time, look who they're looking up to. Donald Trump doesn't take responsibility for anything. In this situation, it's kind of like he is the victim, but he brought that on himself. I don't know, but I'm glad she posted that video. I understand now why they can't wear political gear in our school systems, but
No,
yeah.
but the thing is, it's not even about politics, because if it was just about politics and he had a Republican shirt and somebody had the Democratic shirt on, and but this kid is bullying them in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's just a difference of political opinion. I mean, these
Mm-hmm.
Republicans are literally hurting women, people of color,
Yeah.
immigrants. They're deporting them out of the country. I mean, what they are doing is so egregious. You can understand the anger. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're a drug addict and you take too many drugs and you OD, it's a sad situation, but you
Yeah.
kind of knew what the consequences were. If you come in with a divisive hat or whatever, with people that have been hurt by this group, and there is some pushback or some fight back, he's used to being a bully and not getting pushback. This is what bullies do. Once they get
Yeah.
pushback, they're the victims. I'm sorry for the kid, but he kind of got what he deserved because he started it. If you start it and somebody else ends it, I'm sorry, I don't feel sorry for you. You could just not have done it and everything would have been fine. But
What you just said made me think of something because with Marisol and her children, we have to take like extra precautions with them now because it's just not safe. And so what you just said made me think of what he was saying and doing to the other children. It could have been triggering to these other children, So if you're
absolutely.
telling me you're going to be deported, and every time they look at the news or they go online and they're seeing people from their community who look like them being deported, being rounded up, we've seen children in handcuffs. So that could be triggering for the other students that he is bullying. And so from which she was telling me, the girl that posted it in the chat was, they were doing everything that they could to report it to the teachers, report it to the office. They sent him home early a couple of times. His parents were talked to about it. And he just
Didn't
kept
do any
on.
good, apparently.
Yeah. And he just kept doing it until, to me, it's kind of sounded like the other children in the school were like, yeah, we sick of him. and then they just started going after him hardcore, and he couldn't really handle that. Um,
The parent,
I
pa-
wish the
par,
school
pa-
would have done something. I do.
the parents and the school had a responsibility, and they
Hmm.
didn't do it. That's where the problem lies. But when you're in a situation like this, them wearing a MAGA hat this may sound crazy, but
Hmm.
wearing that MAGA hat with kids of color, maybe LGBTQ kids, maybe immigrants, that's like wearing a hat that says the N word, a
Yeah.
homophobic slur. It is triggering because
Mhm.
we see how these people are being treated by the people that wear those fucking hats. I
Yeah.
don't blame them for getting mad or getting scared. It wasn't even so much that they're mad, they're terrified. And as I've told people before, when you terrify people, they'll come out fighting in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So they turned it back on this kid. He realized he couldn't do anything now. So he goes, "Oh my God, I'm going to cry and I'm going to commit suicide." Now, maybe he was serious about that,
Yeah.
but that's a common reaction from people who are bullies that are ultimately cowards when they
Yeah.
finally get beat. My father, for example, whenever he was, it wasn't quite the same situation, but whenever, he'd bully us, and then when I got older and I cornered him, and there was no way out, um, I'm trying to think of an example, uh, like, um, like say some money was spent on something, and he had a lot of money, but he was always bitching about how much money was spent, and when he got cornered and he couldn't answer the question, he would say
Yeah.
something like, "All right, I'll give you all my fucking money. Just take all my fucking money."
Yeah.
That's
Sounds like
that's
my
how they
daughter.
respond. Yeah, that's how they respond. Or
Hmm.
okay, the kids can just run free. I don't care.
Yeah.
Donald Trump does that. Uh, Cowards, bullies, cowards, and malignant narcissists do that. And I think that's maybe what this kid was doing. I'm not going to try to decide whether or not he's actually suicidal or not,
Yeah.
but in this world, actions create reactions. And we're not in a world now where people can bully people and not expect something in response. And I think it's good. I mean, the kids have to push back. I don't. If it was my kid, I'd push back. I had a situation where a kid was bullying my kid, and I talked to the parent. And I said, you gotta stop your kid."
Yeah.
"Well, kids will be kids. I'm not gonna do that." And I go, "Listen." I said, "Listen to me. This isn't the right way to do it. You have a job to do with your kid.
Hmm.
Your kid is bullying my kid. If you don't do your job, then I'm going to bully you, motherfucker, because I'm going to slap the shit out of you." And
Yeah.
it's amazing how quickly they said, maybe I can talk to him.
Yeah. I think his parents isn't doing him any favors.
No,
I don't know them, but you would think that you would teach your children better, but then if you're not doing better and they're just mimicking your behavior, it doesn't matter what you tell them. But you would think that they would want to tell their children that, you do something, every reaction has a reaction. So you might want to think before you do this, or maybe just not allow it to get to the point that it did, to where, the school is calling you and they're talking to you and they're telling you that this is what he's doing and he's continuing to do it. I just, I just look at him and I saw a kid, I seen his head on
yeah,
the desk, him crying. And then I even kind of like you said, like the teacher was like a black woman. That was the first thing I said, like, girl, you gave him the hat back? Like, what? But it was just a horrible situation all around, that it shouldn't have to be like that. But,
no.
you know, it is. And there's hopefully, girls, when you guys heard Boomer's explanation, you got something from it, because I didn't know what to say. I really didn't.
I
And I was thinking about it, but
and
it's
I
just
can't
on.
I can't say I can't say I have a solution to it. That's just my read on it. I would question whether he really that upset. He was just trying to find a way out. Now he might be that upset, and we want to take care of all these people that might be suicidal in school. We don't want that to happen. We don't want some guy to go home and get his dad's gun and come back and do shit. I mean, the
Yeah.
whole idea that we even have to worry about this shit is ridiculous. I mean, I remember when I was in school, Nobody wore political shit. They wore keep on trucking t-shirts and Pete's t-shirts and marijuana leaves on the fucker. That's what we wore. We didn't give a shit about Richard Nixon or anybody.
Yeah,
But that's how divisive it's come. And a kid like this, no, maybe he's a kid that doesn't get a lot of attention. Maybe he's not popular in school. Maybe his parents don't pay attention to him. What do kids do when they want to get attention? They cause problems. So
yeah,
the moment he puts on that red hat, he's got an identity. Presumably
mm,
in his mind, a tough guy. So I'm going to go act like a tough guy. We're dealing with
that's-
children here. Their frontal
yeah,
lobes are not fully developed as yet, so they don't know fuck all about fuck all.
yeah,
Um, that's why parents in schools have to do their fucking jobs.
yeah,
You can't leave it to kids to make the right decision because they won't.
yeah. Especially in this situation, you did have a good point. I didn't think about his actions, how much that could trigger other children
Oh,
who don't feel safe right now, who have to take extra precautions like we do with Marisol's children. You know what I mean? So, I could imagine that being triggering. I wouldn't want any of the girls to participate in that, and they know that I wouldn't. That's why they dropped the video like, hey, what do? We have these MAGA kids in our class and they do stuff and they say stuff and they get away with this and they get away with that. But look what happens when we push back. Look what he's doing, and I'm like, and I have to say one other thing. I'm not proud and I'm not bragging, but it would be a girl in the classroom who went toe to toe with this teacher's like, he shouldn't be wearing that hat. Fine, I'm getting the F out of your classroom. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
it,
I don't blame that girl.
bragging about her, but she kind of held her own with that. She wasn't okay with him getting this level of sympathy from that teacher. And she wasn't gonna just sit there and let this go on. Like the rest of the kids were like looking at him. You could tell they didn't know what to say or what to do. And that one girl in the back of the class just she said what she had to say. So it would be a girl who would
Well,
who would like that.
I'll talk to my wife about it tomorrow and see what kind of input she gives because that's a weird situation. But the one thing my wife always does say after 30 years of teaching, she says at the very least, when the kids come to school, it's got to be a safe place. And if
Yeah,
those girls didn't feel it was safe because of this kid's personality, the way he was picking on people, and that hat,
yeah,
that has to be addressed.
yeah. I wish that they wouldn't have to go through stuff like this, like at all.
Uh,
I really,
well,
I really
it
do.
well, and that brings us to talk about the person who's responsible for all these things is the Donald Trump, of course. I mean, he is the biggest child I've ever seen. I mean, I just watch things that he does, and I'm going, it's one thing to argue, but that is embarrassing, that kind of argument. I'll give you an example. He did an interview yesterday or the day before, and he was asked about the economy. Well, the stock market's going down, tariffs and all this other stuff. And he says, oh, that's Joe Biden's economy. That's not mine. I've only been here since January 20th. What's weird is prior to the election, the economy was going strong. And he goes, oh, that's because of me because they know I'm going to get elected. This guy isn't even trying to be believable in the excuses. He just says whatever he says, and he is an absolute fucking child. I mean, it's
Mhm.
just so stupid. I would feel embarrassed of anybody I knew that believed that shit because it's so bad. But this is the kind of personality who's leading the country, and this is why we've got a lot of people, not just this kid, a lot of adults that are fucked in the head.
Yeah, people have asked me, like, why is he just telling these bold-faced lies? Like, he is literally on television telling us that prices are way, way down, as if we don't go to the grocery store and order groceries, as if we don't go to the clothing store and see that the prices have gone up, as if we don't need to buy appliances and see that the prices have gone up. Like, why would he stand on television and tell us bold faced lies that we know are lies and don't feel any embarrassment towards it at all? And then my response to that is he got elected by telling bold faced lies. Since
Yeah.
Donald Trump has been on the scene, he has told you what you just saw. You didn't see that. What you heard me say, you didn't hear me say that. Oh yeah, when I was being dead ass serious, I was just joking. And nobody called him out on his crap. He got reelected off of culture wars, lies, nonsense, racism, hate, bigotry, sexism, all the isms. He got elected off of that. So now that he's
Yeah.
actually president of the United States, you expect for this man to do anything different? We all sat here and watched January 6th with our own eyes, but not just January 6th. Since the night that he lost the election, we saw him. They're taking our country away from us. The elections are rigged. We saw him build up to January 6th, and all he got was excuses. Even Chris Christie, who I thought was going to call him out, said, you know what? Let him do his little court cases. Let him have his little tantrum. January 6th, it's going to be behind us, whatever. Just let him go through the process that he has to go through, as if he's 2 years old and his daddy just died. You know what I mean?
Well,
So
yeah.
now that he is continuing the behavior that he's always done, that this behavior done nothing to Donald Trump but reward him. He's always been rewarded for this. And now all of a sudden you want him to stop and do something different? That's not in his character. That's not in his genetic makeup. The only thing that's going to stop Donald Trump is to get impeached. Nothing else is going to stop him from doing what he is doing. He's not going to
There's
be
a couple.
ashamed.
There's a couple of other options, but we won't go into that. That could happen.
You're not making him
But
feel like that
but
child in there.
but yeah, but the thing is with Donald Trump, they say, why does he do this? Why does he tell these blatant lies, try to gaslight? Because you
Yeah,
pointed out he's done it all his life.
yeah,
Except, he did it when he was a child in school, and he keeps doing it and pounds on it and pounds on it until the point where people go, all right, fuck it, just have your way. Then he
yeah.
went into business, and he had all these yes people, and they just agreed with anything he said, no matter how outrageous, no matter how crazy. Now, when he
Mm-hmm.
steps into the political realm, that's a different theater. You would think it would be hard to pull that off, just agreeing with him, even though you know what he's saying is absolutely fucking ridiculous. You wouldn't think anybody of a reasonable mind would do that. But
Mm-hmm.
God damn it, the Republican Party did that because they
Yeah,
felt like he could bring them money, bring them votes, and he just agreed with everything he did. And they're still doing it. You're
yeah.
absolutely right. The reason he does this is because it works for him. But as
Mm-hmm.
more and more people watch his failures and watch what he's doing, I mean, he's losing support. We look at the polls about his standing on the economy. 65% of the country disagrees with him. I mean, he's
Yeah.
underwater. His polling is at 39% approval rating, which is the lowest in 70 years. This is
Mm-hmm.
not going well for Donald Trump. But to think that Donald Trump will change up his strategy, he can't. He's not
Mm-hmm.
that smart. He's not that self aware. He's just going to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it until somebody says fucking stop. And this guy, and you saw it in this interview with Tony or Terry Moran yesterday on ABC. Um, he did what every journalist, if you're truly a journalist, should have done. No, that's not true, and
Yeah.
then keep coming back and pointing it out. And you could see Donald Trump flailing in that fucking mess. Um, he's always done it. He's always gotten away with it as long as you let him get away with it. But I tell you what, as soon as the Republicans start hitting back on him, he's going to be like that kid in that video. His head's going to be on the table and go, "Oh, I'm just going to die. I'm going to commit suicide, or I'm going to leave the country." That's the other thing they do. They fucking bolt when they got nowhere to go. So,
Absolutely. You
and that's
see,
where Donald Trump's future is.
have you been watching Rand Paul? So
A
since,
little bit.
yeah, so from what I was watching with like Rand Paul, is him just kind of like sitting back, like, okay, once he slipped under 40%, I'm gonna start hitting. Because Rand Paul is like one of those people who he's kind of like Brian Kemp, right? He can
Yeah.
sit back and he can say, okay, this guy is going to be good for my bank account, right? But at the same time, I'm not just going to be like a complete blind idiot to where I start to hurt myself. It's kind of like they know that you can be in proximity to Trump, but you can't be too close to him because he's going to crumble everything around you. But the political strategist that I've like talked to and seen at some of the like protests and stuff, they have been saying that the Republican Party is saying that not the country as a whole, but once his base hits that like almost 29% mark, like mid to low 30s, that's when you're going to start to see the Republican Party flip. It is like right now they're looking at it like, okay, yeah, but this isn't his base. So they're looking at his base, and right now his base is teetering between like 40 and 42%. And so they're saying once his base hits that mid to low 30s, then that's when Republicans are going to like push back on him. And when it comes to Rand Paul is like, yeah, I ain't gonna wait for it to get that low. I'm gonna start hitting right now. Like he's trying to get ahead of it, is what
which
he's
is a
doing.
smart move. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And he's been
I
hitting pretty hard. I was surprised to see how hard he has been hitting Trump. Like when he came out and he said, no, these powers belong in Congress. This is not, and he's like on Fox News. I don't know if you've seen his interview, but Rand Paul is hitting and he is hitting hard. He is saying that the order that Trump is using, that the order to cause, I can't remember the name of it, but that act that he's invoking to use the tariffs to target other countries,
right.
it has to be a declaration of war. And so Rand Paul is like, A, we are not at war. And B, he's saying the reason for this is because of the fentanyl. And he is saying the fentanyl is coming from Mexico and the fentanyl is coming from Canada. Okay, cool. So why are the tariffs on Australia? Why are the
Right.
tariffs on the UK? Why, like, he is naming all of these other countries. And he was like, so you're basically saying that every single country is pouring fentanyl into the United States. And
Right.
because of that, he is using this act to basically put these tariffs on them. He was like, that's a lie. He's abusing his power, and this belongs in the hand of Congress, the House, right? And then he called out Mike Johnson. He was like, I have enough senators. Like, I have enough Republicans along with the Democrats where we can stop this from happening. But Mike Johnson won't bring it to the floor. He just won't do it. I was surprised when he called out Mike Johnson. I really, really was. And so he is like letting people know, like, hey, us Republicans, we want to do it, but Mike Johnson, he won't bring it to the floor. So the tariffs, basically, Mike Johnson is enabling Trump to continue to do this because he won't bring it to the floor. But there are enough Democrats and Republicans where we can stop these tariffs today. Like he literally said that on Fox News. And I was like, oh, okay. I see
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
he like. He's
Absolutely.
not waiting for it to get that low. He's like, I see where this is going. I'm gonna get in front of it and I'm just gonna have to start calling him out. And that's exactly what he's doing. I wasn't expecting it, but he's doing a
Well,
good job.
although yesterday they had a vote in the Senate about those tariffs and taking the power away from Donald Trump, and it was a
Mhm.
50-50 split, and JD Vance voted for Donald Trump, of course. So they haven't come that far yet. But you make a good point. You say they're waiting for it to get, it's at 39% right now, and they're waiting for it to get 35, 32, 31%, and then they're going to cut loose. How
Yeah,
sad is that? How sad is that? Because these people know 2 years ago this was bad and
right.
negative to this country and damaging to this country. Yet they're holding back up until the point where there's a point of no return for them, so they can keep in control and keep their offices. And that's what I've said. The culture in Congress is wrong because the primary thing, the priority thing that they are concerned about is keeping their jobs, not doing their jobs and not working for the people of this country. That's the problem. Now, Donald Trump's uh, numbers will drop. It will keep dropping. It may drop out real fast
Yeah.
coming with these tariffs and empty shelves and all that shit. That's going
Hmm.
to take a huge toll, and that's coming pretty quick.
Yeah. I
I
think
like
that
I, I, I I like what Rand Paul is doing, but I would have done it sooner. If I'm a Republican, okay, and I see what's going on, I see the ultimate demise of Donald Trump. He's not
mhm.
pulling out of this. I'm going to try to save myself
Yeah.
because the longer you stay with Donald Trump, the more chance you're going to go off the cliff into the fucking ravine with this guy. I would step
Hmm.
away and say, okay, he's at 42%. He's doing all kinds of fucked up shit. I'm going to start talking out against him now. I may have to take some heat from Republicans and maybe even Donald Trump, but he's on the way out. So I'm going to try to save myself and speak out.
Yeah,
I'll take the heat from the Republicans and Donald Trump as I watch them go off the cliff. But these fucking people that stick with him because they're cowards, they're going to
yeah,
go down with him. They're going to go down with him and they're not going to fare well.
yeah. And they are seeing, like, it's just kind of like so short-sighted because they see a majority of the country does not want this. But they are
Right.
taken to its base and they are only focused and caring about what the base thinks and what the base is saying. So it's not that we have him at an all-time low. Is they're waiting for the other people to have him at an all-time low. And they feel comfortable doing that because of the way that their districts are set up and they know which groups keep them in power and which groups keep them out of power. But I think that a part of what they're missing is there are some Trump supporters who will sit here and say one thing and then they'll do something else. Like you have
Yeah.
Trump supporters who will never, ever tell you that Donald Trump does anything other than poop rainbows, flowers, and glitter. He is the
Right.
happiest person on earth with Donald Trump. But they know what their 401ks have taken a hit. They know what the grocery prices look like. They know what reality is. But you want them to speak out against their churches and their communities and their families? Like, no, they're not going to say that. But when it comes down to voting for themselves, it's going to be more of them who votes against Trump than who are willing to admit that. And I don't
Right.
think that Republicans are considering that at all. And I was seeing you had a live you did on YouTube the other day. And there was like no moderators or anybody. And there was
There
a
was no
lot of like,
questions because it wasn't working. I just had to
yeah,
talk for an hour.
there was a lot of like MAGA people in the chat. And for me, I've come across MAGA videos and sometimes I'll pause and I'll like listen to what they're saying and I can't really stomach it, so I keep it pushing. Like I don't read the like I don't like get in the chat and start participating with these people. Like, why would I do that? Right. But for them, like they will literally sit there and watch your video and claim that they just hate your guts and it's all about MAGA 2028 and all of this other kind of crap. But what I noticed a lot of them saying is that's not true. Donald Trump didn't do that. Like it is so egregious that
Yeah.
they can't believe it. Like they literally have to see it and experience it or have it happen to someone close to them because they are not ready to face the truth yet. And I've been seeing that more and more. So it's kind of like instead of like, a lot of them are just gross, Trump 2028, Daddy Trump. Like, I still don't know why these men are calling him daddy. That is so freaking weird. But anyway,
It's a little
they,
homoerotic.
yeah, they say stuff like that. But I'm seeing like more and more of them are like slipping into denialism. Like you were saying something about like how bad he is for women or something like that. And then there was some woman in the chat that's like, when did he say that? When did he do that? Introduce this to me. You know what I mean? And there's a whole SAVE Act out there where he's trying to strip voting rights away from 50% of the women in this country. And you will have a Trump supporting woman. Donald Trump isn't doing that. Oh, you guys are just being hyperbolic. Well, they don't say hyperbolic because they don't use words like that. Or they'll say we're overreacting, right? That's not true. He's not going to do, like, he literally has to put them through it in order for them to believe it. So I'm seeing more and more of them going into denialism than it is trying to defend him. The ones who
Right.
defend him are just like jerks. They just kind of want to stir stuff up. But I never respond to people like that because it's just pure like ignorance and hate. And for me, I don't know. I just kind of like get a laugh out of them going so hard for Trump, and I'll be sitting there like, okay,
You
just
know,
wait.
what's weird about this was I did that YouTube live and I was
Hmm.
just going to do it alone. I was going to answer the questions and deal with the comments and stuff. But for
Yeah,
whatever reason, the questions weren't showing up to me. I had no idea that there were any MAGA in there.
oh
That had to
yeah,
be
there.
kind of funny because I'm just plowing through talking about what I'm talking about, ignoring people because I don't
Yeah.
see the questions, not even the positive questions.
I didn't
That's weird
respond
to
to
me.
I didn't respond to any of them. And then you will be like, okay, so I wasn't responding to them. And it's like maybe here and there, like I remember like one guy, he just kept spamming the chat, like MAGA, MAGA 2024, daddy, like all this weird stuff, right? And it was just kind of like one person was like, hey, MAGA, how's your 401k doing? Right? So it's like every now and then, like, one of your listeners will just come in and say something, and then that's it. But when they saw that they were being ignored and we wasn't really engaging with them like that, it's kind of like they just went crazy and they just kept posting
Yeah.
over and over and over and over again. It's like these are the most unhappy people on the face of this planet. Like there's a lot of crap going on right now. It's a lot of times people are sad and depressed for like legitimate reasons. And these people are just trolling for the sake of trolling because there's like nothing else in their life to look forward to. And it's kind of like, I don't really feel bad for them. I just sit there and just like, your life sucks. And it's about to get a lot worse. I don't really feel the need to say anything to these people. They're not gonna listen. They have to go through it. And it's supposed to get rough when we ain't got stuff on the shelves. And we can't buy dolls apparently.
All right, we can't
Insane.
buy it. We'll talk about that in a moment. But that's funny when I run into Trumplefucks now, and I'm just not in the mood to argue with them because I know there's nothing to be gained from it. I try to
Yeah.
think of something else that will. And inadvertently, I did it in this live apparently. But what I would typically do is say, "Listen, I'm not going to argue with you. Well, why not? You're afraid? No, because you're inconsequential. You don't
Yeah.
matter anymore. In the
Yeah.
real world, you don't matter. You're in some surreal fucking second parallel universe or whatever, and you're a dumb fuck. So I don't need to argue with you. You can't learn. You're learning disabled when it comes to common sense. And I'm not a professional, so I can't deal with that shit. But you know what you want to think about that story we told in the beginning. You told about that video about this MAGA guy being the bully, and then he gets bullied back, and he's upset, and he's figuring out ways to get out of this, and he's claiming he's suicidal and all that stuff. Um, I want you to pay attention to that because that's kind of a microcosm of what's going to happen. Because when this all comes falling down, and
Yeah.
MAGA is the pariah that they truly are, and everybody is there. There are going to be people ganging up on MAGA from having to take their shit all this long. What happened
Yeah.
in that classroom is going to happen in this country, and we are going to see a lot of dumb fucks with emotional problems, emotional breakdowns, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting because like I wouldn't say that they were MAGA, but there's like your regular Republican, like the Mitt Romneys and all of those people who like they just dipped out, like I'm not even gonna deal with this crap. It's a lot. I'm out of here.
Right.
Um, the people who are there now, I think that I'm pretty sure they're gonna be trying to play the victim. I'm
Oh, no
pretty sure
question.
they're gonna try to do. But it's just not gonna work. And the thing
No.
about I don't know if maybe it's just their age or they're just so used to like being around like their whole little cliques that they don't know how everyone else thinks or feels. But there's like so much evidence of these people like in a butt kissing contest with Donald Trump. So it's kind of going to be difficult to play the victim here when all we have to do is just press play and run the tape. Even like
Right.
now with Donald Trump saying, hey, this is Biden's economy. I don't know what this is. Like in 30 seconds, people were like posting his post from like January of 2024 claiming the economy. You have been claiming this economy for over a year as your economy. And now all of a sudden, well, this is Biden's fault. This is Biden's economy, right? But I do watch like focus groups and I've like been reading some of these other polls. And one of the things that Republicans are not paying attention to is pollsters have started asking people who is to blame for the current economy or who's to blame for tariffs and all this stuff. Overwhelmingly, Democrats and Republicans, by like dang near 70 something percent, are saying Trump. Like they are not blaming Biden. So Trump is saying that. They are trying to like push that out there on Fox News and his bimbo press secretary, as you call her, right? They
Yeah.
are trying to push that out there. But even Republicans are like saying, "Oh yeah, this is Trump's economy." Like that's what happens when you get outside of MAGA and you see like what other just like normal low information voters think. Yeah, they're saying, yeah, this just Trump's economy. These tariffs, like this, those are Trump's tariffs. Like nobody is blaming Biden for Donald Trump's tariffs. That was even like
Yeah.
higher than Trump's economy. Like you can't get like 70 something percent of Americans agree on anything, but it was like 80 something percent when they brought up tariffs. Whose fault is it for the tariffs? Donald Trump. Like Republicans and Democrats, like Biden didn't have tariffs on here. Like, I don't think that they understand that talking point that this is Biden's fault. That's really not going to work because people had jobs when Biden was in office. Farmers had contracts when Biden was in office. There was no problem with the supply chain when Biden was in office. Like people know this. It's weird that they think we're part of that cult when we're not. It's
Thing about
weird.
it, the thing about it is that if you want to know what it's going to look like for Donald Trump every day, every minute of every day, all you
Yeah.
do have to do is look at that interview. And when that interviewer said to him, "Well, what about this Abrega Garcia guy? You got to bring
Oh,
him back." The court said he's got to bring him back. And he said something like, "Well, I don't know about that. I have lawyers dealing with that." Motherfucker, you're the president. You just didn't want to talk about it. He says, "I'm obeying the law." No, you're not obeying the law. And later on in that conversation, he proved that. But he tried to distract, divert, pivot, whatever you want to call it. And he
yeah.
started trying to point out how bad a guy this guy was. And he
There,
says he had a picture with MS-13 on it. And Tony says, no, that was photoshopped. And Donald Trump was taken aback. Photoshopped? Is that what you believe? That's why people don't trust you anymore because you lie. And he kept going saying, no, no, it's been debunked. It's photoshopped. It's photoshopped. And I didn't know if Donald Trump was so bought into his lie or he just didn't know. Because I will tell you, the people around him tell him what he wants to hear, not necessarily the truth, because they don't want to deal with his shit. He may not know that that was photoshopped. And anybody looking at the one picture and the other picture of the guy's hands, you can see this is not even photoshopped, it's poorly photoshopped. But
Donald
he
Trump,
acted like he didn't know. He wanted to sell this. He was so upset. He was so upset and so shaken by what it was. I don't know
mm,
why. I don't know why you just don't say it's true. Because it's not true, motherfucker. He
okay.
couldn't get it. He couldn't. Why won't you give in to me? That's what he's saying. Because
I
everybody
think
does.
there's something that people are not talking about. Okay, I got to give Kelsey credit for this because a lot of times, like when I'm traveling, like when she was with me, I was like, and she was getting ready to go back to Arizona. I had somewhere else to go. And we were sitting in the airport, and I was like, oh my God, like, I'm going to miss having you here because I'm sitting here and I'm working and I can't, like, read and all that stuff. I'm starting to watch more than I'm reading. I was like, so bad you can't stay with me 24 hours, right? So what she started doing was like reading articles, like recording herself reading articles and like sending them to me. So like I'm on a plane and I can listen to them. I think the funniest thing is when she adds her commentary to like she'll read the article and she just interjects some like crazy stuff, right? But anyway, so she was reading me this article. And then after like she read it, I had to go and like look it up and get like three different sources to verify this. So, the president of El Salvador, what's his name?
Euclid, I think.
Yeah, we know who he is, right? So there was a deal that was made. So there was a bunch of like MS-13 members that were like rounded up. Some of them were rounded up during the Obama administration, and then some of them were rounded up in 2022, right? And they were like going through the legal process here, like a lot of stuff like we don't see the Justice Department doing. It's like terrorists and gangs and all of that stuff. They were like being prosecuted. But part of like the deals that they were making was to like expose like corruption with the El Salvadoran president. Like, I swear I'm going to send you these articles, right? So MS-13, I guess there's like different factions to it.
Yeah.
And when he made that deal with Trump, that yeah, we'll take the people that you deport, but you're also going to have to release some of these prisoners that you guys have been rounding up from MS-13. I think like one of these guys is like a high ranking member, and he was released. So those
Wow.
people that the president of El Salvador wanted released, Donald Trump released them. Nobody is talking about that.
Yeah.
I was like, Kelsey, where the heck did you find this article? Like, I didn't know people were like, when did this happen? She's like, I have no idea why nobody, like, she was reading the article and she was like, Mom, I have no idea why nobody is talking about this. And then she kept on reading and she was like, oop, here's the story again in Times, the New York Times. And then she started reading me that article. So as much as he is out here and he is talking about MS-13, they're gang members, they're the worst of the worst of the worst, that list that the president of El Salvador had for Trump to release them, he released them. He just sent them back. The president of El Salvador, he asked for them to be released, and Donald Trump released them back. And it is insane, insane that nobody is talking about this. And I was sitting
Yeah.
here and I was like, looking at like the New York Times is reporting on this, but you don't see CNN, MSNBC. Well, you know, you're not going to see Fox and nobody else reporting about that. But it
No.
is just kind of like, wow. And then after like I read the article, she sent me there's this guy on YouTube. He made like a 7-minute video about it where he like read the article and like broke it down. So there are people talking about it, but their channels are like kind of small. But there's
Right.
like no, like we don't even see like Brian Tyler Cohen talking about it. We don't even see Midas Touch talking about it, but like some of the smaller creators, they are talking about it. But you know, I guess Donald Trump's foolery is like more important than like an issue that's this serious. That
Yeah.
he is here demonizing people who didn't do anything wrong, arresting judges for stupid stuff, right? Which two judges got arrested, and then the wife of a judge got arrested. But I guess that second judge and his wife, nobody wanted to talk about them. But anyway, it's just like they are not talking about that. And I'm like, this dude
Yeah.
is like literally out here releasing MS-13 gang members. And sometimes I think I don't want to like get into a conspiracy theory, but when you see something like this, and then you see like left-leaning channels as big as Midas Touch and BTC, and they're not talking about it, you like, what's going on here? Like, why are none of these people talking about this? But
Well,
you know,
it's
I
just
understand you have to get eyes on their channels, and that's how they make money. I understand it, but I mean, this is something that if I was a large creator, I would want to talk about, you know. But
well, the thing about it is that there's so many things to cover, and they're maybe just not doing their job because they're too focused on the more salacious or scandalous stuff.
yeah,
But no one should be surprised that he let go MS-13 people. He let go 5,000 Taliban into Afghanistan. So
that's true.
this should be no surprise. There was something else in that interview that nobody's talking about either, and I find it strange because it shows just how flustered and confused and stupid Donald Trump is. At one point, Tony Moran says, "Look, man, you're the president of the United States. You could call the president down in El Salvador and tell him to send the guy back, and he'd send him back." Donald Trump
Yeah,
says, "Yeah, I could do that." Oh, wait a minute. You told us you couldn't do that. You told the courts you couldn't do that. So you
yeah,
lied to the courts. So you admit to obstructing this situation? I
yeah.
got a feeling that's got to come up in further court proceedings. Now, what he this
Have you
is
heard
how
Mark
he
Elias talk
behaves. He
about that?
fucked up. What?
Yeah, have you heard Mark Elias talk about that? So
No.
Mark Elias, he said during Trump's like first administration, I believe like when it came to the Muslim ban and stuff like that, um, attorneys were actually trying to use, you know, Donald Trump's words in like their arguments before the courts, right?
Right.
However, Donald Trump's attorneys were saying, you know, you can't like use words that he says to the public because it's not illegal for him to lie. Like, it's not a crime to lie to the public. And like, that was their argument when they were going to court during his first administration. But he was saying for this one, it's not like he is like on the campaign trail, just like telling blatant lies to people, right? Like he is literally sitting down, giving a serious interview, and he is acknowledging the fact that he knows that he could get this done and the courts have told him to do that. He's just choosing not to, right?
Right.
And he was like, so
He
when it's,
verified that.
yeah, he said when it's that specific and you're given the context, he really believes that this go round, they may be able to use those arguments when they're in front of the court and actually get it on record as evidence. He believes that they may be able to do it. I think so too, and I think they'll be more inclined to lean towards our favor because, like, they are saying they will arrest Supreme Court justices, right? So I
Please
think like
do. I can't wait till they do that.
yeah, so I think that I think they might be more inclined to rule against him than what they were in the past. And I don't know, I have a weird take about it. I guess I can ask your opinion, but I think that when the Supreme Court was handing down these immunities and giving Trump all these wins and stuff, I don't think that they were doing that for Trump. I think that they were like kind of setting that up for the next Republican president to come along and take advantage of these new laws and rules that they put in place. I don't think that the Supreme Court ever thought that we as a people would re-elect Trump and put him in that position. So when they were like doing all of these rules, they weren't doing this with the thought that Trump would be back in office one day. They're just kind of like playing that long game and setting the stage for the next Republican president. When you think about it, it's the same thing that the Heritage Foundation was doing when it came to Project 2025. They're just kind of like laying the brickwork for the next Republican president. And I think that's what the Supreme Court was doing. They didn't think that it would be Trump taking advantage of these rulings. Like they never thought that we would reelect this fool. But now that we have, they got to deal with it. But I don't think that they were expecting Donald Trump to be the one to exploit these rulings. I thought that, they would think that it would be maybe a JD Vance or whatever other Republican we put in there. What do you think
I
about
don't,
that?
I don't think that they thought he would get reelected. That whole concept would have been just crazy, even though it
Mhm.
happened. And whether they were doing it for future presidents, I don't know, maybe. I think they were doing it for one specific reason. They were trying to own the libtards a little bit, and they were trying to save Donald Trump between 20 and 24. They're trying to give him a way out. Because what was going to happen to the former president of the United States is unprecedented. Whether they thought that would be a problem for our governmental system or the courts or whatever, I
Yeah.
think these people like Alito and Clarence Thomas specifically, they were trying to help their boy, their Lord and Savior, to not go to jail at some point between 20 and 24. That's what I think what they were doing. Now, whether they wanted to do it for future Republican presidents, that's cool, but it also applies to future Democratic presidents, and I can't imagine they'd want to be all in on that.
Yeah, but they don't look at the Democrat Party as a party who would just be lawless. And they
Yeah,
don't look at the Democrat president as somebody who would exploit the system to this extreme, right? And
yeah.
even if like Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, like name a Democrat president that we would sit there and allow them to do that. Like we would be the first people calling their butts to the floor, like, y'all need to do something because this does not represent us. This is the most anti-American crap that you can do. And nobody wants a lawless president, whether he is Democrat or Republican. I mean, that's how we would look at it, right?
Right.
So even though they were putting these things in, they know that Democrat or Republican can exploit these rulings and these decisions that they're making. They just never thought that a Democrat would take advantage of it, but they knew damn well sooner or later a Republican would come along and take advantage of that without hesitation. I mean, look what they did for Bush, right? They wouldn't have done that for Gore or anybody else. So
Yeah.
I do think that, that's what they were thinking, maybe like down the line a little bit. But at the same time, you could be right too. They was just maybe trying to keep their boy out of prison and, they needed a little extra cushion in their bank accounts. Or, maybe Clarence Thomas wanted to get a private plane instead of a boat this time.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was you mentioned it earlier, and uh, Caroline Levitt or whatever the hell her name is, she says some stupid shit too. I'm surprised she hasn't gotten buried as yet, because when Amazon was going to do their little thing by saying this is how much you're paying in tariffs, which is just transparency. And if I run a business and my my products go up by 145%, I want people to understand, hey, it's not me. This is
Yeah.
why. And Donald Trump gets all butthurt, calls Jeff Bezos, and Bezos kind of capitulates to this. Um, and then Caroline Levitt comes out and was asked a question about that. And he says, well, it's a well known fact that Amazon is a arm of the Chinese government. Please, motherfucker. You really think Jeff Bezos, the second richest man in the world, needs China to keep afloat? I don't think so. Although Jeff Bezos is going to be dramatically impacted because a lot of shit he sells is from China. But they say stuff like that, and then what you said before, we wouldn't be opposed to arresting a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
Now
I
that's
think,
just fucking stupid. I fucking dare you to do that. I would love to see that. And I don't care if it was a Democrat or a Republican. Rest one of them. Just shoot, do it.
I'll with you a pick one. Let's see how this play out. I think what just I don't know how I feel about this, but it just really reels my emotions is for her in particular because she has the cross on the neck and all that other kind of crap when and just the disdain that she has for regular people, and it's like, look at your situation. Your husband made a hoe into a housewife and you over here judging folks, right? But when you see before she goes out and has her pressers, she has like these people around and they're saying their prayers and praising God and all of this stuff, and then she steps on the other side of the door and does absolutely nothing but lie, 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 lie. It's insane. And it's how they always like pray and talk about Jesus and God and all of this stuff and then in the next breath we are taking away cancer research for children. At the same time, we are taking away research for Alzheimer's. And then you just think that Donald Trump, his father, passed away from dementia. And he has like no way to want to like, get any research in there, how we can catch this earlier, how we can maybe like try to minimize this or eradicate this so no other person has to go through this. It's like a horrible way to die. And he's just like, yeah, I know that's how my dad died. And, he probably could have hung around a little bit longer, but nah, we're not going to fund that. Like the way that they just talk about the religion and Bibles and this, that, and the other. And it's just like they are just exploiting it to the umpteenth degree. It's just so sickening, especially her, because she just kind of like, I remember Kayleigh McEnany, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, she said a bunch of crazy stuff, but you could tell that she was smart and she was strategic with her lies, right? Like if you didn't know better, you could almost believe her. This heifer is like on a whole other level. It doesn't have to make sense. Every time somebody asks her a question, oh yep, I was just talking to the president about that this morning. Oh yep, I was just talking to the president about that 20 minutes ago. Like she's just
Yeah.
lying her butt off. She doesn't even try to trick anybody. And now she's allowed these like influencers into the press briefer. It's kind of like I don't know, like maybe like the Jerry Springer show. Like, like that's the stage, and these are all the crazy people, and the rest of us are just like sitting in the audience, and we might ask a question or two, or laugh at some of the foolery, but like no, this isn't real. Nobody is taking this seriously. Just the way she made a mockery out of information that the American people need, and she just puts on her Jesus cross or just keep it pushing. It's insane that they do that, and they don't feel nothing about it. Like they don't care.
Yeah, no, they don't. And one of the things these people should be worrying about, whether it be Donald Trump's lawyers, whether it be Elon Musk, whether it
Yeah,
be his little techno twinks, whether it be Marco Rubio or Caroline Levitt or any of these other people, Donald Trump may have immunity, but there are crimes being committed. And when Donald Trump is no more and MAGA doesn't have any power at all and the Republicans are out of control,
yeah.
there's going to be a lot of investigations and there's going to be some indictments and there's going to be some convictions. People that thought they were right and Jesus was on their side, but they're going to be praying next to their fucking bed, next to their toilet in their 8 by 10 fucking cell.
I know Like if Jesus came back tomorrow, right? Like I look at these people and I just say to myself, they better hope that they don't believe none of this stuff that they saying. Because if the afterlife is the way that they think it's gonna be, like I just sit there and just imagine like God having a sense of humor, like letting them get up to the pearly gates and then just like dropping one of those like trap doors underneath their feet and just send them straight. Like there's no place here for you. So that's why I think they can't possibly believe what they are saying. Because if they really truly believed in what they're saying and what they're preaching, they know that once they hit the other side, there's nothing nice for them to just tell these bold-faced lies like that. The
I,
damage that they are causing, like there are literally like I think it's like a couple weeks, like I could barely talk about it. Is there was an article about there was like these 12 infants in Sudan and they passed away like one right after the other. And then they just passed away from starvation because they were like very, very sick. They were in the NICU. There were like no medication. There was like nothing for them. And so they literally had to sit there and watch like 12 babies just like pass away and die. And then there was a nurse who was talking about there's like one child left, like in her little ward. And it was like an 18-month child. And she was like, ran to like this cupboard where they normally keep medicine and food at. And she was just kind of like praying that it would be something there that she could give this child. And there was just nothing there.
yeah.
And I don't understand how people like that could just turn around and say anything about God and humanity and doing what's right, doing what's wrong, passing down judgment on other people when this type of stuff is happening on their watch for less than 1% of our budget. Like you are literally allowing disease to spread and children to die from starvation, like babies in a hospital dying from starvation. And you're sitting there and saying, yep, that's a scam. They're stealing that money. And you know that it's a lie. I
Yeah.
will never understand people like that. And I got to be honest with you. I don't want to understand people like that. I don't understand that at all. Like on the day that I wake up and say, yep, you know what? That makes sense. I understand that. Like that's the day where you need to be like, hey, oh, so like, I'm gonna call the doctor.
But I talked about this on the show one other time, um, and it was a video I saw. There's a political comedian. He's very well known on TikTok and stuff. I don't know his last name. It's Walter. He's kind of funny and he kind of, he goes out to MAGA things and acts like a MAGA guy and just teases these people and stuff. And he's really good at it. I'm sure
Yeah.
everybody knows who I'm talking about. But
Is it
this one,
like the good something, I think that's what their names are. Anyway, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, yeah, I'll see if I can find it. Uh, but he was out at a MAGA event
Yeah.
and he was talking to some MAGA people and he was talking to this woman and he said, well, of course, if Jesus came, you'd let him into the country because he wouldn't be from America. Um, and it's Walter Masterson.
Mm,
Look him up. He's very funny. He's very funny. But he says, of
yeah.
course, you'd let Jesus in. And this woman, this political dipshit, this MAGA woman says, of course we'd let him in, as long as he went through the proper channels and did all the checks and signed all the paperwork and stuff. I go, are you fucking
No, she
kidding me?
did.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, Jesus could come in, but he's got to go through immigration and do all the proper procedures in order for him to come in. Do you know who Jesus is? Because Jesus is not going through immigration. He's going to come in through your fucking back door, is what he's going to do. It just amazes me how these people are so, their minds are so tainted. They're so sold on this egregious shit that everybody's against them, and Donald Trump's the only one that can win it for them. And when I hear the people talk about the Trump folks talk about what's the most important thing to you, immigration. The stock market has dropped 6,000 points. Your 401ks are going away. Tariffs are going to clear things from the shelves. And the worst thing you're worried about is immigration. I will say this about Donald Trump. Donald Trump was successful in getting less people coming across the border. Did you know there's 95% less people coming across the border now than there was 2 years ago?
Who the
But
hell
you
would
know
want to come
why?
here?
But that's my point. People leave their countries because they are in bad, scary situations. Coming here isn't a good choice anymore because it's bad and fucking scary here. So if Donald Trump wanted to keep people out of the country, he made a good choice. He didn't have to build a wall. He just had to try to create a fucking authoritarian situation, a dictatorship, a fascism state, a fascist state. But these people,
You
they still think immigration is the biggest problem. Immigration's always been a problem for every president. It's not the biggest problem when people are starving and dying. I'm just saying.
I think that these are the type of people who they would deport Jesus. Let's just just keep it real. Like, where your
Oh,
papers,
they
you ain't
would.
got, we gonna deport you. And then if you try to come back in this country, we're gonna crucify your ass again. Like, that's the mindset of these people. But that's their mindset. We were supposed to like my friend and her daughter from the UK, that what they went through trying to come here the last time. They were talking about like for Kelsey's birthday, they were going to come down. And I'm like, there's no way I want you guys coming back into this country and being subjected to what you were subjected to the last time. And like the crazy part about it is I was scared and I was worried. I didn't even know that my brother was like on his phone and he was like looking up like flight logs and stuff because he was just like, man, like maybe it was like a plane crash or something. And he didn't want to tell me that. But it's just kind of like, since when in America have we just had somebody with like a delayed flight or, we don't know what happened from the time they took off until the time they got here? Like, at what point did we had to start, wait a minute, let me just look it up and make sure the plane didn't crash. Like,
Yeah.
that it's been normalized. Like, people don't even talk about that type of stuff anymore. But what we were
Yeah.
saying to, gosh, all your Canadian listeners, they're gonna know what I'm talking about when I say this. Because she was saying, well, if they can't come here, we can go to Canada, right? And meet them in Canada. I'm like, Kelsey, like, really? You all wanna like hang out with your friends and your family for your birthday? She was like, I'll be happy with a beaver tail. Anybody from Canada, they gonna know what I'm talking about. I tried to make it like for homemade for her, and she was just like, nah, we got to go there and get one. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make that happen for her, but it's
A
like we
beaver
don't
tail?
Canada for no freaking beaver tail. Yeah, it's like we didn't notice until we went the last time because we actually had a chance to like get out and like explore the culture a little bit. But they have like these beaver tails, and it's not like a real beaver, but it's kind of like dough. They dip it in like cinnamon and sugar, like right out of the fryer
Ah,
into the cinnamon and sugar, and you put like all these toppings on it and stuff. Um, and she was just like every day she wanted to try like a different one, like maybe Nutella with bananas and nuts on the top of it. Like she just was like hooked on these beaver tails. Um, does she have a birthday coming up? We'll see. But we trying to feed a lot
well,
of people really tight. But it's sad that they can't come here and celebrate her birthday with us. It's either we go to another country and celebrate your birthday with like our friends, or we can like stay here and do it with our family because they don't need to be coming into this country with that kind of hostility. Especially we just saw, I don't know if you saw it, but there were two girls from Germany, like young
yeah.
girls, like in their teens, and they were detained for a while. And the reason that they detained them was they was just like, well, you didn't book like hotel accommodations for your full like couple weeks that you were going to be out here. You only booked it for 1 week. Um,
Yeah.
I listened to
Well,
Ed. Remember when
yeah.
Ed said these are not all ICE agents? I listened to that and I was like, thinking that when he said it, I was like, man, I've been thinking that for a minute, right? But it solidified me. I saw this woman, she was telling what happened. Like they broke into her house, they detained her and her daughter, and they took like their devices, like their laptops and their computers, like they took their devices, like they came into her house. This is the wrong house. Your name isn't on the warrant. Like, but we still gonna take your stuff. And there's nothing that you can do about it because you're an immigrant. And so
Yeah.
when I was like listening to her, she was like crying and she was like, we're people. Like we're your neighbors, we're your coworkers, we're people. Like have some humanity, feel some type of way about us. And as soon as she said that, I was like, yeah, I've kind of been like leaning towards what Ed was saying. And I was like, yeah, I can see
I
that
think he's
happen.
right.
When
I
I
think he's
saw,
right.
I was like, oh yeah, that's not ICE. I don't, those are like Trump's goons, Spacho people, whatever, those are his goons. I call them his goons. Not all of these people are ICE agents. I just don't believe that. And the thing that, like when my friend and her daughter were detained at the airport, she said the very first thing that they did was take their devices, like they took their phones and they were like going through their phones and, laptops and all that stuff. That's like the very first thing that they do is they take people's devices.
Wow.
You can't even have any type of free speech in this country without thinking that if they find something like that on your device, you could be detained, which is this
Well,
is
it's
like one of my
appalling.
yeah, and it's like if I don't go to the UK or you know Kelsey want her beaver tails or Canada or something, we're gonna have to wait this presidency out before we can like come into America and kick it like that because it's not gonna happen. I would not put her or her daughter through that again. It's insane.
Well, I will tell you this. Tell Kelsey, if it involves deep fried dough, cinnamon and sugar, my wife and I are both in on that with her. We're going to have some beaver tails too. I don't know where I'm going to get them, but I'm looking because
Anybody, anybody like your Canadian like listeners, I'm telling you, they're gonna know exactly what she's talking about. There's no way that they don't know it because when we were asking like, what's a Canadian staple? Where should we? Everybody, you got to get a beaver tail. You got like everywhere we went was like, what the heck is a beaver tail? And then we just ordered one, and it was like, oh, that's what this is. It was pretty good, but yeah,
did you
all your
have any
Canadian
did you have any poutine up there? I think it's called
poutine.
poutine. Yeah, it's French fries with gravy over the top.
I did not. I did not. Now
That shit's
I'm
good.
I'm trying to think if she had that or not. I can't remember. But we were just really trying like a bunch of other stuff. And it's like, it's good when you have a teenager who is like, I need to go to another country so I can eat that.
You know,
That's what
I was thinking about Kelsey when you were just talking earlier. She's a young woman, girl actually. She's not even 18 yet, right?
nope, but she will be soon. She has a birthday coming up in June. Both of my
Oh,
girls got birthdays in June.
wow. Wow. Well, when you were telling me her about reading you these articles and doing all this research and stuff, I know she was going to go in the service. And then when
Yeah.
Donald Trump won, you said, nah, you ain't going in the service and not being in the service under this motherfucker. And I agree with that. Then she talked about being in politics. I think she might be better served to go into like journalism, doing the research, and
Yeah.
sometimes when you're in politics, sometimes you become part of the problem because you're only one person. People have said that to me. Why don't you go run for something? No, I'd rather stand on the outside and be a shit stir, let people know what the fuck is going on, and let them
Yeah.
decide. I have more power in my mind doing that than sitting in one spot in Congress trying to fight against a bunch of other dumb motherfuckers. I don't want to be part
Mhm.
of the problem. I want to be part of the solution. And Kelsey strikes me as somebody who wants to be part of the solution. And maybe, because she has a tendency to, what I like about her, and I've never met her, but I've heard about her, uh, she speaks out. She's pretty bold. And
She
that is
does.
an important quality to have if you want to be a leader or a success in the future. So she's in a good situation.
Like I would tell her like skip past this part. She does. I think that it comes from like a couple of different places because we knew where she went through, right? And it's
Right.
just kind of one of the things that she struggled with the most. Like she still struggles with it, is she left and she's no longer in that situation. But that doesn't mean that she wasn't close or friends with other girls within that church. And
Right.
it's really hard knowing that they are there and that they are in that situation. And she always wants to like think of something that she could do that could help so that girls who are in that situation don't have to be in that situation any longer. Um, and I think that that is like what molded her. It's just at such a young age to see, what elected leaders or politicians, the decisions that they make, how much that can affect like your personal life, and
Right.
how that could it can kind of mold you into like seeing your life completely different than what you would have if you didn't have those experiences. And I mean, like that's what her and the other girls in the group, like they really do struggle with the fact that people are just okay with this happening. There, I don't know if your wife, she'll know who I'm talking about, but there was this girl, her name was Madeline Soto. And
Hmm.
like they have mothers, like Kelsey's mother was just like this heifer, but she had a boyfriend. Like they were together off and on. And when he was over at her home, he would say, yeah, yeah, your daughter, she doesn't really like sleep well. She's scared of the dark. She doesn't like to sleep by herself. And so her mother would go to bed and allow her boyfriend to sleep in the room with her daughter because she was scared of the dark and she didn't like to sleep by herself.
Right.
1 week after she turned 13, he dropped her off at school and she just came up missing. And so they've been watching this case. It's like kind of like it plays out. Anytime there's like a press conference or an update. Earlier today, we were talking about that because he had a court case yesterday where he was trying to get evidence suppressed because they found CSAM on his phone. And CSAM is um, child sexual abuse material. People say child porn, but if you know any victims, they don't like that. Like the girls in the group will get very offended because they're like, porn, those are adults. That's something you consent to. We didn't consent to none of this stuff that we went through. So they always use the correct terminology. But they found videos that he recorded on his phone of her and
Oh,
what he
wow.
was doing to her and making her do. In addition to, then he's trying to get that thrown out because his attorneys are saying, hey, they didn't have a warrant to check his phone. So all of those videos, we don't want to have that in evidence. And so the girls are kind of like freaking out, like, what is his odds of getting away with this if they don't allow the CSAM into court? So they're all freaking out about it. And I had to tell them, as sad as this is, you have to think about the other evidence. And one of the other evidence is, how to those stoplights or whatever, they caught
Right.
his car. And on CCTV, they saw her body slumped over in the car when he was like going to dispose of her body. And so I was
Wow.
like, even the CSAM isn't allowed in, like, don't freak out. He is going to get convicted. Like they are so worried that this man is going to get away with it, but they're even more angry and upset, and they take it personal because they have mothers like this. Like, why were you letting him go sleep in her bedroom in the first place? And why, if you were her mom and she was scared of the dark, why you couldn't go sleep in her room? And it's just kind of like everybody failed. They failed her because the mother had roommates. And when she went missing, the roommates were telling the police, oh, like, yeah, her boyfriend used to sleep in the room with Madeline all the time. And nobody spoke up for her. And so they kind of feel like they have to like do something or push for something to make sure he doesn't get away with it. And it's
Right.
kind of like to keep them calm, but they know what it's like to be her. And so it's just kind of like if he gets away with it, it's extra hard because their abusers get to get away with it because, they had abortions. And so they don't get justice, but they want her to be able to get justice. And that is
Right.
something that I pay attention to that case. It's really, really hard to
Yeah. I
see.
can
I didn't even
imagine.
know that happened. I had no idea how often that happened until, girls started coming here. And
I did.
they still
I
need
didn't.
help. We just can't talk about that in Trump's America, but girls are still being helped. But you see stuff like this all the time, all the time. And these are situations where you should have hearings, like what Kelsey said. Like, if you are abusing a child, you should not be able to homeschool your child because you're just taking away that one thing that can keep them safe. But instead of like us being able to go to Congress and push for these type of laws and these types of bills, we're sitting here talking about weird stuff like Hunter Biden's laptop. They don't want to address any of these issues. And so you see somebody like Kelsey, she's like, they're not talking about the stuff that we want to talk about. I got to be in Congress. I got to make them talk about it. But she's just one person, like you said. And I think that a lot of them, they don't really remember because they were in high school what it was like to have like a normal president and normal hearings with like Elizabeth Warren calling out, drug manufacturers and stuff. They don't see that. They don't know that stuff like that does happen. But we just have to get rid of Trump for them to see that, yeah, we could talk about stuff that helps you guys. You don't have to like put yourself in Congress to make that happen. But I think she feels like she has to because she's never seen any of these other issues being addressed in Congress. It's about Hunter Biden's
If she,
laptop and Martin Taylor Greene wanting to show his nudes.
if if she has that calling, then she should do it. And I hope the young people, millennials, Gen Z, the new ones coming out, Gen Alpha, or whatever you call them,
Hogg is
they,
going hard.
what's that?
Hogg is going hard, and they don't like him.
No. And I think he's right. I think he's absolutely right. But the thing is, the future is theirs. It's not mine.
Yeah,
And all the people in Congress, it's not theirs. And hopefully the younger people in this country realize the importance of it and that they have to take control so they can have a determination of what their destiny is and don't give it to dumb fucks like me who aren't even going to be around when you're living with the shit that you're left with. So for Kelsey to want to get involved and do something about it, that's completely understandable. And I hope a lot of young people feel that way because they really need to. I mean, when
yeah,
we were young, we didn't give a fuck about politics. We didn't get involved. We were apathetic. Hopefully now they see the urgency of it and they do get involved, and that's the only way things get better.
yeah. What would you say? Because they talk about this all the time. I think he's right. And of course, the girls, they think he's right too, because they are in that age group, right? And they are not really seeing Chuck Schumer being,
No.
he's not a really good person to deal with when you need somebody to, balls to the walls, right? He's not that type of
Right.
person. And, I see like a lot of the Democrats are saying like it's ageist and this. No, it's not. But the thing about like Elizabeth Warren, she's old. Ain't nobody
Yeah.
tell her to right. Bernie Sanders, he's way old. And then nobody, so it's not an ageist thing. It's just that I feel like for this generation, in order for them to have a voice, they do have to kick these older Democrats out
They
because
do.
Chuck Schumer is not going to walk away. Like they're going to like have to carry him out of there on a stretcher. Mitch
Yeah.
McConnell was like one step away from that. You see,
Right.
Nancy Pelosi, she's not going anywhere. Anytime there's a leadership position that opens up, they put some ancient person in there. They're not even
Right.
giving like younger people a chance. They block them at every turn. So to me, it's just kind of feels like they are at a point to where it's like, if we don't push them out, they not leaving. So like, I kind of feel like he's right because they don't feel like they have a choice. And when I look at them, I'm always like, oh, you have a choice, blah, blah, blah. But in this particular situation, I don't think they really have a choice because to
Well, I
sit
think
back
it,
and leave it to the hands of Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and whoever else who's operating like it's still 1982 in 2025, that's detrimental to their futures. And they're the ones that's going to have to live with the decisions that these people make. They're going to be dead before they feel the effects of that.
yeah, I think David Hogg is right because um, we saw whatever they did for 2024 did not work, and they just want
Mhm.
to do more of that. My
Yeah.
rule of thumb is if I do something and it doesn't work, do something, do anything fucking different because you
Yeah.
don't want to repeat the same mistake that you made initially. I'm going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. Old soul,
I have
thank
one
you.
thing to tell
Oh,
you.
okay.
One thing. It's in Indiana. I don't know if you heard about it, but it was a fight. One of our girls is in Indiana, and it was a fight getting sex education to be able to be taught in schools. Like when I say this was a fight, this was like a fight, fight, fight.
Right.
But they had a hearing on it, and during the hearing, they were like, "Okay, well, you already knew that anti-DEI bill that was going to go through,
Uh,
regardless,
yeah.
right?"
Yeah.
But they tied a string to the sex education course. And the string was you cannot talk about consent when you are teaching sex education. That was the string. Like, if you say that we have to talk about consent to young girls, we're not going to, we're not going to do it. we have to talk about consent. We're not going to do it. And they were saying talking to young girls about consent. It's not funny. It's not funny. But they were saying that it's grooming to young girls. Like you're
Wow.
teaching teachers to groom girls. But we got our boys here because we've been working on. We telling the girls to be strong and independent or whatever. But we're not like showing young boys how to like support women and girls, and that's like part of the problem. They grow up to be like, well, I don't want to keep talking about this kid in that video I sent you, but they have that type of mindset. And so we were trying to stop them. So our boys here, but like my brother and Uncle Cleo and all of them, they like kind of like started like going online with their petitions and their writing campaigns and all of that stuff. It's like, we are going to support these girls, right? And the bill it passed and they kept the consent in the bill.
Wow.
Those
Good
young people
job.
in Indiana and like the other like people in other states, like our kids was like, no, you're gonna teach girls consent. And they were like pushing online. They had a letter writing campaign. They were ringing phones off the hook, and they actually got consent in sex education. You would not think it was a big deal, but these kids were like, absolutely not. They're gonna put that in that bill. And they didn't take no for an answer. So the bill passed and consent is in the bill. So
Nice.
shout
Nice.
out to the young
Well,
people out there doing stuff.
I
Also,
don't know why it would be bad for a girl to know what their rights are. That
well,
seems basic.
I don't know if you knew this, but 12% of the girls in Indiana stated that they had sex under pressure. Like they felt like they just didn't have a choice. The guy wasn't saying no. So it's just kind of like do whatever you need to do and just get through it.
Hmm.
And then 14% of the girls said they've experienced sexual violence. And when you talk to them and you say, well, you could have said no, or especially if they're in high school and their boyfriend is in college or whatever, and they force themselves on these girls, they don't even know that that's wrong. Like they don't know this. And these are like red, hardcore conservative areas. So they're not talking to their girls about if you say no, it's no. And if he persists any further, that's wrong. That's a crime. He should not be doing that. And you need to report it. Like they did not know that. And then I think that Republicans wanted to continue to allow their sons or the young guys in their lives to do that because they pushed really, really hard to take consent out of sex education. But
Wow.
the kids fought back. It's in the bill. And I think that's a good note for me to end on. I'm happy that they got that done.
And with that, I say fuck MAGA. And I appreciate you coming on and taking the time. I always look forward to talking to you. People look forward to listening to you. So thank you very much. Say hi to Kelsey. Say hi to your daughter, your other daughter. Say
Yeah.
hi to your TT, your mom, everybody. Uncle Cleo. Uh, tell Uncle Cleo what's up for me.
I'll tell them.
All right. For those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.